Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show Dr. Davila Garcia, who's an associate professor at Howard University's College of Medicine. And one of the things that she talks about is emotions and neuroscience, which, as it turns out, have a huge impact on people investing. Real pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Doug.
So,
Pleasure to be here.
before I go into the specific questions, can you give us a brief overview of the type of work you're doing?
So I'm a neuroscientist. So as all neuroscientists, I'm extremely curious as to how the brain works. And so one of the things that I've been studying or looking at is how we make decisions. I'm more focused on drug abuse and how we actually end up becoming abusers of certain things like alcohol and tobacco and cocaine and things like that. But this also ties in very much with how we make decisions about things during our daily lives. So one of them, of course, is investing and managing money.
Is there any overlap between why people abuse drugs and alcohol and why they become addicted to investing or trading or gambling?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The reason that they become addicted or become very much emotionally invested in doing those behaviors is because we have areas in the brain that are going to store things that are good for us or that make us happy, and that's called the reward center of the brain. And when we do things or we experience things that are negative for us, we actually store things in an aversive area of the brain, and they're interconnected. And sometimes, most of the times, these connections are actually quite passive, and they're very much working in tandem, and they allow us to do things that are normal. But sometimes we actually increase the activity of some of these areas. So when you gamble or when you take drugs, you end up exciting or overexciting this reward center of the brain. And then the aversive side basically becomes tuned down or not active. And so you end up with a dysregulation or a lack of control over what you're doing and over your actions. And that's why all of these things come together is you have an overexcitation of the reward center and a downregulation of the center that says, stop, don't go, don't do that, that's bad, that's not right. Stop it.
Are these actual places in your mind, or is this sort of a metaphor to help people like me understand?
Oh, no. There's actually places in the brain that you can actually see. If you actually put wires on people, electrodes on people's brain, you can actually see areas of the brain firing when you're when you have a positive experience or when you see something in a picture that is a positive thing for you. And on the other side, if you actually experience or see things that are negative or have a negative connotation in your brain, your other areas of the brain will actually light up. So there's a lot of, this is all hardwired emotional brain. There's it's not ethereal, it's not floating in the air, it's all hardwired in your brain.
So we have all these emotions that drive us. And certainly in the world of finance, so much of what I do in my day job as a financial advisor is I explain to people it's not that it's obvious, but they're principles that I think make sense to everyone when you describe it academically. For example, don't spend more than you earn, right? This is something you can calculate. You can see how much you earn and how much you spend. And the concept is not a high-level concept. And yet, that's one of the most destructive areas that people have in their finance, which is they spend more than they earn. And there's always some emotional response. How come it is that people can't control their emotions so that they could make more logical decisions, especially in areas that are so easy to measure, like money?
Well, one of the problems is actually lack of education or lack of positive experiences in that regard. So you have to understand that people have a very positive connotation to money. So they think that investing and doing the kind of financial things that you normally do when you are investing is going to always be a risk, and therefore it doesn't matter whether they're taking, they're making a decision to buy something or not. The problem comes when you don't have enough information in your brain, when you don't have enough um, learned experiences that teach you that you need to control the buying of things that you don't know anything about, as opposed to to buying things that you know a little bit more about and you can actually control. So if you actually have more knowledge, and if you have more information stored in your brain, you can actually control your emotions a lot more, and you can actually not take risks and purchase things that you cannot afford.
I see. We're talking with Dr. Davila Garcia at Howard University. She studies neuroscience, studies the brain, but she particularly studies, well, one area is how people make some very poor decisions or emotional decisions, specifically in the world of finance. So let me drill in on something you said. You said that people may not have enough experiences, they don't have the education, and they need more knowledge in order to perhaps make smarter decisions. But it seems to me I know people who for decades have been shopping too much and spending too much, and they live in debt for way too long. So it would seem to me not only do they have the numbers on their bank statements always being in the negative, but they must know what it feels like to have to dig themselves out of debt every morning. How come they can't translate that, or what could we tell them to help them translate that into an experience that they themselves could learn from their own mistakes?
So the connotation of what you actually said was a negative connotation. So you say, do not spend more than what you have, or do not spend more than what you earn. And the problem is that there's a negative connotation to that. So they already have blocked their brains and they're not listening to you anymore.
Oh, no.
And so the thing to do is actually to take a step back and say, okay, what is it that you want to accomplish? So if what you want to accomplish is to buy a house, then what you need to do is you need to invest X amount of money every month for the next X number of months, so that you can actually, in 2 years or 3 years, you can actually see that money in the bank account, and then you can purchase a house. That to them sounds like, okay, that's a goal that I'm going to be looking forward, as opposed to, I'm not ever going to have enough money to spend, because you're telling me that I'm never going to have enough money to buy the things that I want to buy. You see what I mean?
I hear. So
It's
you put a
so
positive
there's
spin on it.
if you put a positive spin on things, because all Western societies have actually put so much emphasis on having goods and having material goods, and that our pride, our entire being is always, just trying to become this gatherer of things, as opposed to trying to figure out what exactly it is that you need. You need a shelter, you need food, you need to have clothes, and many societies, in Sweden and places like that, they're actually thinking the reverse. Is try to minimize what you need and see what you really can actually live with. And so if you have a positive spin on things, I think people are actually always more accepting, and they can actually think in a more positive way. And their decisions will be a lot better and more towards the goal that they want to achieve.
So this might be a bit of a radical question, but is there some kind of pill that you can give someone to make him think logically? The same way you might help someone who has an addiction. You say, listen, let me just take this drug to control some path in your brain that's shooting off, making you make poor decisions, and instead it'll just let you run a calculation and positively think the right decision.
Yes, there's actually there's drugs, but more importantly, there's actually a lot of different behavioral modifications that one can do in order to be able to make better decisions. Control yourself. One of the things that I always tell everybody is, we have been taught to get reward immediately. And so if you delay those rewards, if you learn to delay the rewards, you can actually make better decisions at a later time. So for example, if you're going to go shopping, keep the credit cards at home. And then if you find something that you really like, you can always come back for it. But if you actually take your credit cards and every single credit card is in your wallet, then it's a lot easier for you to spend a lot more money than you even expected or that you were, budgeting for. Delay reward. And delaying reward is always a lot better, and it makes it for better financial decisions.
So if you can teach someone to do that or develop the habit of doing that, then it might make you, in the long run, a better financial decision maker?
Absolutely.
Are there any other traits you can tell us in the last minute of people who you've seen who are financially successful that we could copy some of their patterns?
So other than being learned, being educated, delaying reward, making sure that you put the money where you know it's going to be a positive reward. So we take a lot of risks sometimes, and that's okay. But sometimes we take risks that are not going to take us to the right places. So, the more knowledge you get, the less the risk involved.
Got it. Okay. That sounds like two good takeaways. One is increase your knowledge, and two is learn to delay rewards by getting in the habit of doing that, and hopefully also teaching your children as well. We've been talking to Dr. Davila Garcia from Howard University. In the last few seconds, can you just tell us how can people learn more about you and follow your work?
So I'm a professor at Howard University Medical School, so you can find me there. I have LinkedIn and Facebook, and all of my information is out in there in the web, so you can find me.
Okay, and we'll put links to that at the show notes of the Goldstein on Gelt of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Thanks again very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world. If you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.